Hello, everyone, and welcome to my presentation of Administrative and Clinical Demands at Oregon State University's Student Health Services. My name is Vick. Let's get started. So I'd like to start with the organization itself, which is Student Health Services. This diagram shows us the four areas Student Health Services touches on: prevention, advocacy, and wellness, or PAW, as we like to say, and clinical services. I currently work for the program through the prevention sector called the Collegiate Recovery Community, or the CRC. This is a program on OSU's campus that provides a safe environment for students recovering from addiction. These students can obtain recovery support while working towards their collegiate goals. The program encourages and supports academic improvement and helps build positive life skills, all while providing a normative college experience. Dixon Lodge is the recovery building on our campus. It provides housing to students with over 6 months of sobriety. Within Dixon Lodge is the community clubhouse for non-living members. You can see here there are couches, a pool table, computers, a movie screen, and other games and space for activities. As a CRC member, you are required to attend multiple check-in meetings a month and an open event. Check-ins are a time for students to talk about their struggles and achievements with school, their sobriety, and other life challenges. Open events could be anything from celebrating monthly recovery milestones to movie night or sober tailgating. So I need a photo here, and that'll be included in my final presentation, but there is a community meeting room in Dixon Lodge, which is a space for recovery meetings at OSU and provides to the Corvallis community at large. Meetings range from 12-step meetings such as Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous to mindfulness meetings or eating disorder meetings. In addition, there's a full kitchen, a dining area, a small quiet study space, and an office for the alcohol, drug, and recovery specialist, John Ruyak. As you can see, this building is fully equipped to support students in recovery in multiple areas of their lives and sobriety. So there are many moving parts to make this beautiful program run effectively and successfully. So I thought I would talk to two individuals at Student Health Services who work directly with the CRC and the OSU student body as a whole. And they are Robert Reff and Jay Vanden Bogard. So Rob Reff is the Director of Prevention and Health Promotion. Categorically, he works on the administration side of things, and you can see all of Rob's credentials here. He oversees graduate teaching assistants, organizes the Prevention and Advocacy Coalition, oversees PAW programs through SHS, and is on the Board of Division of Student Affairs. Rob focuses on the university as a whole instead of individual students. Jay works on the clinical side of Student Health Services as the Certified Alcohol and Drug Counselor, or the CADC. I've provided you here with her credentials, and as you can see, Jay has earned more licenses and certificates for her line of work. I want to focus on the level of CADC. She has here level 3, and there are different kinds of work for CADC. Level 1 is 1,000 logged clinical hours with no degree. Level 2 is 2,000 hours with a degree, and Level 3 jumps to 6,000 hours of clinical hours with a degree in counseling. Jay is the only CADC at SHS, and she's booked 6 weeks out. So if you're booking an appointment with her, you will most likely see her at the end of the term or even into the next term. She works in collaboration with other clinical staff, nurses, physicians, and psychiatrists, and holds one-on-one and group sessions with students. Most are referrals, but every once in a while she will receive self-referrals for addiction and abuse issues. So let's get into the individual interviews, starting with Rob. And again, I have this diagram here that shows the PAW divisions in Student Health Services, and for the sake of this presentation, I'll be focusing on the prevention aspect. So in my talk with Rob, I was able to pull kind of 3 main points from all that we discussed. So within the prevention division, Rob talks about how this work is inherently going to be an open system. And we know there's no way to effectively work on a college campus with what we do and not have an open system, he says. The program that Rob oversees in prevention must be adaptable to the OSU environment in order to survive. And with that environment changing so frequently in higher education, you need to look at your short versus long-term goals. Not only this, but paying attention to multiple goals at one time. And to achieve these goals successfully, they take a strength-based approach to their teams, individually and as a group. So let's take a more in-depth look at each of these. So as we know, open systems theory is having an organization produce outputs that are needed and valued by the consumer, in this case, the students. So Rob looks at serving the students, but also growing his teams professionally. And that's where dedicating specific hours to GTA and staff come in. And following along with the theory, he strives to make the workplace inclusive to diverse cultural backgrounds. During those specific meeting hours, he tries to understand their background, what they bring to the table, their worldviews, and how their culture impacts the way they look or work with students. And then looking at that on a broader scale and understanding what programs the students actually need, how the students' cultures come together, and looking at the data to align and ask what programs need revamping and what need to be implemented. After that, it's about sharing information and being inclusive as possible to students and to staff. So getting into the short versus long-term goals, there's a lot to juggle. Rob talks about this balancing act of multiple goals that are not necessarily competing, but you do have to pay attention to. And with that balance comes taking risks and having the willingness to fail. Sometimes taking those risks doesn't work out, or they're not the most financially sound decisions, but then the goal is to realign and to learn from the failure and maximize the impact the next time you try something new. The other challenge is planning, or carving out the time to meet with everyone, especially in prevention, which is difficult. Situations come up where a student in recovery or entering recovery comes up and you need to tend to that immediately. And things get put on the back burner, but you need to be okay with that. And it's all about the students. But most importantly, Rob likes change when it comes to goals. Change is exhilarating, but also hard. And for some people, change is a challenge. And so as a supervisor, he needs to make sure everyone is on the same page and receives all the necessary information. He's found that when people are resistant to change, it's because they don't know the meaning behind it. So communication is imperative during those transitions. And when hiring or looking for the right team for a program, Rob operates from a strength-based approach. That is looking for individuals who want to positively impact the students they serve. As a supervisor, he's always trying to find their strengths and motivate through them. But if they aren't performing well or having issues, you need to reshape and reorganize your approach to help them be successful. And that's where using every tool in your toolbox as a supervisor is effective. So Rob says they hire from strengths unless the employee shows they can't operate from a strengths perspective. Then it's renegotiating the relationship and being really concrete of addressing the negatives if there are any. Not all approaches are the same, and that's when it's good to have multiple approaches. So let's switch gears here and look at the diagram that shows the pod divisions at Student Health Services and get into clinical services. Jay's role as the Certified Alcohol and Drug Counselor, CADC, is more of a collaboration with the physicians, nurses, and psychiatrists within the prevention sector. So Jay's work is a bit more structured and more face-to-face interaction with students instead of planning programs for them. We started our conversation about student one-on-ones, and those are referrals from academics, referrals from court, sanctions, student conduct, or individuals struggling with their academics and addiction. Next, we talked about the collaboration of clinical staff that she works with for each student. And there are so many variations of what each student struggles with, and she needs to be able to communicate with all areas of wellness. Finally, we spend a lot of time talking about her personal life and how she deals with the stress of being overbooked, balancing her work life with personal life, And let's look at each of these individually again. So Jay doesn't have two students that she approaches the same, but she does have one theory that kind of encompasses how she looks at all students, and that is the therapeutic alliance. It comes down to the relationship you have with your student. It's more person-centered and experimental, so the student should feel comfortable enough to drop their walls and bond with you. If you don't have trust or alliance, they aren't going to open up. So there is some structure that she has to work by in SHS, which is taking time beforehand to prep for the student she's about to talk to them for 60 minutes, and then do a written evaluation afterwards. But overall, for her one-on-ones, they are individualized, and she works on the fly when speaking with them. Some barriers come up that are language or cultural, but she utilizes different resources through SHS, such as a call-in translator, to communicate. As I've mentioned, Jay's collaboration is with practitioners, nurses, and psychiatrists, and she mentions just how unique the environment is at SHS. She's worked in drug court, private practice, corrections, and hospitals, but higher education has been the healthiest collaboration because it's so supportive, patient-centered, and rewarding. Clinical staff coordinates via email for every student Jay sees, because there are so many levels of each student's wellness. And that student may have seen the general practitioner before they saw Jay, and so she needs to be up to date on what they've prescribed or suggested for that student. Some roadblocks that come up are some cultural barriers between staff, but Jay said she has learned to accept that not everyone is going to do things the same way. There's going to be different interpretation of emails, or you just need to respond quickly and openly so people don't interpret your tone of voice wrong. Like I've mentioned, Jay is booked 6 weeks out. She's completely overbooked, being the only CADC on campus. She has a full-time position, but not only that, she works over the breaks, so spring break, winter break, and summer, because those are the high-risk drinking and using times. That's when students need her most, frankly, and she says it's never going to be a 9-to-5 job, but she's okay with that. That's what she signed up for, and to help students, that means they call her at 3 a.m. looking for someone to help quit using. The only time that can get frustrating or exhausting is when it gets in the way of her family time, and she says finding that balance is imperative, the balance between her personal life and self-care and her job. So with so many demands in higher education student health services, I asked for a takeaway from each of them. And the takeaway is that both administrative and clinical services play huge roles in making programs at student health services run effectively. Administration has the tools to create and implement and staff a program, and then clinical services keeps the program alive with students who need the services and keep them on track with their goals, whatever they may be. According to both Rob and Jay, this takes collaborative efforts, open communication, patience, change, and a positive environment. So I asked them both why they stay in this line of work if it's so demanding. And Rob says, when we have the right people working towards the right objective and can come out with something better that ultimately serves our students better, that's where I see the enjoyment. Seeing students interact with what you created and then they come out more successful. It truly speaks to their strengths and that we found them a way to succeed. And Jay says, when I sit here and build relationships, and then I see the end product come to life, students who finish their degrees, and I see them thriving and happy, that makes me happy, and it's the best. So I'm going to leave you with a few of the questions that I asked both Rob and Jay. The full list will be in my paper. And with that, thank you very much.